Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this Moodle Academy webinar on Moodle Tool Guide. I'm Anna Karsai, Education Advisor at Moodle, and I'm joined by Richard Oelmann, the Head of Business Development from Catalyst EU, and Tish Kirkland, e-learning consultant from Catalyst IT in New Zealand. Thank you both for being here today. There is no need to wait anymore. I'm passing the floor to Richard. So can you please share your screen, Richard?
Yeah, I will do now. So Tish and I have been asked if we can do a presentation this morning, a webinar this morning around Joyce Seitzinger's Moodle Tool Guide and the work that we've both been doing on that over the years. So presentation, my bit is going to focus a little bit on the history and what Joyce's original Moodle Tool Guide looked like and how it was used, and then how I brought it online many years ago, nearly 10 years ago. And then I'll hand over to Tish to tell you a bit about what she's been doing with it and the research and the work that she's been doing. So a bit of the history of the tool guide. Joyce originally published a tool guide back in 2010. The whole idea was to bring Moodle tools to teachers and enable them to choose which was the most appropriate tool for what they were doing. And I'll show you this in a little bit more detail when I pull my online one up. But essentially, the guide listed all the tools that were available in core Moodle at the time, and it would have been 1.8, 1.9 about then when Joyce created this. So all the tools that were available in Moodle down the one side, and different parts of pedagogy along the top. So whether or not you needed to use the tool for information transfer, for assessing learning, for communication, or for co-creating things with students. And then the other column or other two columns, the one at the end that Joyce added, was using Bloom's taxonomy, what that tool could contribute to Bloom's. But then on the first column as well, the one I skipped over, Joyce identified how easy or difficult those tools are to get set up. And then the color coding on there gave some indication of, gives, I should say, because it still does on the newer versions, of how suitable that tool is for those different elements of pedagogy. I'll go into a little bit more of that when I'm showing mine on screen, because I can blow it up a little bit more. Moodle 2 came around, and I first came across Joyce's tools then when Gavin Henrick updated it for Moodle 2. And at the time I was working in a university, and I found this tool guide that Gavin had updated and shared it with some of my colleagues, and we thought it was brilliant. It was just a very, very useful tool to share with our lecturers, with staff who were developing courses on Moodle. But our drawback was that because it was a PDF, people wanted it printed out or wanted access to it, and we wanted to be able to call it up in courses and so on. So I actually created a web version of it and made it just a little bit interactive. You can click on it and go to some further detail and so on. And that was very, very popular in my university. So I then added a tool selector to it as well, which went a little bit further than people looking at the columns, but actually went through and made a decision tree about how to, if you weren't familiar with Moodle, if you weren't familiar with the tools in the first place, how could you go about selecting what the right tools were. And then I left my university and joined Catalyst. And in Catalyst, one of the things that we do for our staff once a year, we have something called a Catathon, which is a day when we can do our own projects. And so I took my tool guide and did a little bit of work updating it in 2020, just after I joined Catalyst, as part of a fun Catathon project for myself. And then most recently, Tish has taken on digital age for learning in New Zealand and done some research work and published some work on that, which she will tell you a lot more about in detail a little bit later. There are some other versions. It isn't just mine or Joyce's or Gavin's. I know Nicholas has also created a web-based version, which is available from MoodleNet and from the Moodle forums. And when Sandra and Anna publicized this podcast, Ralph got in touch with me as well to say that he's not long ago done a German language version for Moodle 4. So there are a number of other versions. There may be many others that I'm not aware of, but those are the two other versions that I'm aware of at the moment. So I'll call this page back up a little bit later, but if you want to find any of the work, my online tool, which is what I'm going to show you in a second, can be found at Cat's Tool Guide. A bit of a nod there to both Catalyst and to Joyce's Twitter, and I believe now her Blue Sky profile, which is Cat's Pajamas. But catstoolguide.com will get you to my tool page. It's an open source thing, as Joyce's original tool was. So it's available on Git as well. So you can download it and edit it and update it and add additional tools and things like that to it, which I'll show you in a second. And then Tish's link there, which she'll give you in her presentation as well. So I'm just going to switch tabs a minute and go across to my tool guide. There we go. So Cat's Tool Guide will take you there. And as I said, there are two different sections. There's the tool guide itself and there's the tool selector. I'll show you the tool guide first, so I can tell you a little bit more about the columns and how it works. So as I said, with Joyce's tool, it pretty much, mine does lift it exactly from Joyce's. Pedagogy along the top, information transfer, assessing, communication, interaction, co-creation, and then Bloom's taxonomy, whether the activity can help remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, or creating. And then the tools themselves down the side. And the way it works then is if you're looking for a tool, let's say page, and you're looking across, what does that help me with? Well, it's easy to set up. Yeah. In Moodle, you just create the page, you use the HTML editor, which is now Tiny MCE. You can add multimedia to it, you can add text, you can add images, you can create a page, basically. What's it good for? So green is, yes, it's good. Information transfer, it's ideal for information transfer. Obviously, it's a page, you're putting information on there. You're hopefully transferring it to the students, to your users. But it's only a teacher tool. Teachers can create the page, students can't, so it isn't really suitable for co-creation, for example. Although you can change permissions and allow students to do it, but most people won't have done that on their Moodle sites. But you can use it as part of giving students a task. So you can provide the information for the students for a co-creation task, perhaps. Again, assessing, not really, but it can give the students the information to lead them through to an assessment or an assignment. Communication, Well, communication one way, that transfer of information, yes. Less so the back the other way, although some of the multimedia or some of the activities you might put on a page might be interactive. There could be web too, there could be widgets and things that you've put in there. But the Bloom's taxonomy column then points out that really there aren't any Bloom's activities on there. Maybe I should have included remember and understand, but it's not really a learning activity. It's an information transfer. It's giving the students and probably directs them to some other activity which is more suitable. As you can see, I've kept the color combinations that Joyce originally used, but one of the things I added then when I was doing this online was some accessibility. We shouldn't just rely on color for giving meaning. So I added these icons to each of them as well. So the green gets a tick, the orange or amber gets a warning sign, and the red gets an X. So those icons were put there really to assist a little bit in accessibility at the time, just to avoid meaning through color. So obviously people who are colorblind wouldn't get that color, so added an icon to it as well. And the other bit I added when I was doing this is that you can then zoom in on more detail by clicking one of the tools. It will take you into a page just about that tool. And although my version on GitHub doesn't actually have any, there is a section there where you can add additional information. The only additional information I've got on there at the moment is the link to Moodle's own documentation about each activity. But where I used this when I was setting it up in my university was we had links to the kind of support that as a Centre for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, as an education edtech support group, we had our additional information, and the kinds of additional support that we were providing was added on there. The Git version doesn't have that, but the Git version is very easy to update and add your own to it. Now, when I joined Catalyst and updated it, the bit of the tool guide that I actually updated then was I've added the ability to put things which are not core. So you'll see most of the activities on my guide say they're from core. And this was where Joyce's and Gavin's PDFs stuck at what activities were available in core. But with mine, you can actually add things which are now plugins or additional tools. So I've got a couple of examples here. There's an overflow forum type. It replicates Stack Overflow or the style of Stack Overflow, for those of you that are familiar with Stack Overflow. And PDF annotation. It's a tool which allows you to add annotations, and the students to add annotations to a PDF. I've also put Mahara in there. So when I was doing it for Catalyst, we offer a suite of plugins or a suite of add-ons to our Moodle sites, so we could identify which ones we were adding as well, not just the core ones. That is editable because it's in Git, and I won't focus on this very much, I promise, because I'm not planning on doing a lot of technical side of this. But it's a text-based XML file, so everything has a tool name, the description, whether it's core plugin or Catalyst tool, how easy it is to set up, just a status for that, which triggers that color and the icon, and then the little bit of text for it, the transfer, the assess, all of those different columns have a section on there. So it's just a text file that can very easily be edited, added to for any institution. And it's on Git, it's completely open source, so it's available for anybody to download and make use of. So that was my bringing the the tool guide itself online. But the other thing some of my staff asked me to do when I was at the university, and I'd actually found a piece of work by someone called Alison Ruth. Now, unfortunately, since I did this, the link that Alison's work was on is no longer available, and I haven't been able to trace Alison on Twitter or LinkedIn or anywhere else. So if anybody does know Alison, I will be more than happy to add links and add credits into the work. She is named on here, but if anybody does know her or know where I can find that link, I will add the proper links back into it. But what Alison's work did was actually create a sort of decision tree to enable people to choose the tools. Because one thing we found about the tool guide itself was the teachers needed some idea of what the tool was going to be able to do and how they were going to be able to use it before they could even go down and use the tool guide and then look at what its strengths and weaknesses were. So this tool selector was built to try and assist teachers who were not familiar with Moodle in actually selecting which was the best tool to use in the first place. So, for example, if you wanted to do some assessment and you wanted to do something which was learner-centered, and you wanted to do something which was maybe peer-assessed, it's going to then recommend you use Workshop. And you can then look at the tool guide detail for Workshop and say, oh, that says it's tricky to set up. It takes planning and time. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't have the Moodle skills to do that. Let me go back and see whether or not something else works. Maybe we want to do a group activity. So it's going to be collaborative. Wiki. Okay, tricky, but yeah, okay, I can manage that. I can do that. It's good for information transfer. Maybe not so good for assessing. Okay, perhaps, but maybe a formative activity. Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's fine. Students can co-create. Yes, it's a group. And yes, it does quite a few of the Bloom's activity. Okay, I'm going to go and use Wiki. But maybe you want something that's interactive. Let me reset that. That's kept everything there. Go back, tool selector, interactive. Again, I want something for the group. It's a large group. It's going to suggest the forum. So in this way, I created a decision tree that helps staff who were new to Moodle in saying, I know what I want to do from the teaching and learning perspective. Now find me the tool, rather than I know what tool I want to use, what's it good at. So my tool guide with the two different sections addresses both ways of working. I know Moodle, I know the tool, what's it good at? How can I arrange things? Or I'm not actually familiar with Moodle. I'm a new user. I don't really know what tools to use. How can I help choose what's the best tool to use for each of those sort of pedagogy pieces? So that was the way I brought that tool guide online. I shared it with my staff. A lot of my staff made quite a lot of use of it at University of South Wales and then University of Gloucestershire, and we started using it with some of my consulting team at Catalyst when we were talking to new Moodle users and how to best find the right tool for learning design. Tish, I think over to you to update what you've done in the most recent iteration of using the Moodle tool guide.
Thank you, Richard. And I have to say that your Moodle tool selector and decision tree was an inspiration for me, and I absolutely love it, and I kind of ran with that with some of the things that I've done with my Moodle Tool Guide as well. So my name is Tish. Greetings and thank you for joining us. I am joining you from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I'm going to start with my pepiha and whakatauki, which are how gatherings in Aotearoa, New Zealand are often started. And I will be speaking in Te Reo Māori, which is the language of the Indigenous people of Aotearoa, New Zealand, just for that part, not for my whole presentation. I wish my te reo was that good. So tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tararua ngā maunga te ru nei tāku ngāko. Ko kai wharawhara te awa e mahia nei aku māharahara. Ko Kirkland toku whānau. Ko Tish toku ingoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. And whakatauki is a way to set the theme or tone of a meeting or gathering. And I've chosen this one for my portion of the webinar, which is Nau te roro, nāko te roro, ka ora ai te iwi. And this whakatauki talks to the community, to collaboration, and to a strengths-based approach. And it acknowledges that everyone has something to offer, a piece of the puzzle, and by working together we can flourish. And I want you to keep that in mind as we go through this webinar. So I'm going to talk about the tool guide Remixed, and that's a tool guide that is suitable for Moodle 4. It's available on tish.moodlecloud.com and it is shared to MoodleNet, and it's for you to use. Oh, so what prompted me to create this? Well, people's amazing work like Joyce and Gavin and Nicholas and Richard. And I've been using Moodle since 2008, and I've always been interested in using the activities and resources creatively from the front end. Now, I'm not a developer, so everything I do is from the front end. And if I get out of my depth, I often rely on the help of Moodle forums in English. But I am an educator, and I've been involved in teaching and learning all my life. And I'm currently working towards my Master of Education. And as part of my research toward my Master of Education, I looked into a current issue of teaching and learning in the digital world, and I've included my references here, which I'll just copy and paste into the chat. And as part of that research, I found that the sudden and unexpected worldwide switch to teaching and learning online in 2020 due to COVID restrictions meant that globally teachers felt underprepared, overwhelmed, and due to the sudden and urgent need to go online, they struggled to make informed choices about digital technology tools and types of online learning tasks. And I'm sure we are aware that Moodle terminology does not necessarily match with the teacher terminology and prior usage of that terminology. And teachers tended to stick to what they knew. It meant that sometimes Moodle resources and activities might be underutilised. They selected the activity types that fit with the existing teaching materials and assessment needs. And no criticism of teachers here. Teachers do an amazing job, but I think that Moodle can be used more creatively, and I want to help teachers achieve this. So as Richard mentioned, we've got these tool guides here, and I've got a couple of links that I'll pop in the chat. And I want to acknowledge that the work that Joyce has done on the original tool guide, and it is an amazing tool guide, and the subsequent guides that facilitate the teacher's easy selection of activity types. And you can use any area as a starting point, and it's a fantastic resource for teachers or anyone creating content on Moodle. The existing tool guides, apart from Richard's one, they do tend to focus on what the teacher wants to achieve. So if the teacher wants to assess a student's learning, the teacher is advised to choose, for example, assignment, quiz, lesson, workshop, choice, or feedback. And my overall aim was to remix the existing Moodle tool guide so that the focus is on what the teacher wants the learner to do rather than what the teacher wants to do or what the teacher wants to receive or what the teacher wants to present or facilitate. So, for example, when you're using my tool guide, if the teacher wants the learner to present information, which may or may not be for assessment, then with the Remixed guide, the suggested activities and resources are assignment, the big blue button, chat, database, feedback, forum, glossary, H5P, wiki, and workshop. And the teacher can set up any of these activities so the learner has the ability to present the information, whether it's a full assignment or an essay-type question and a quiz or a visual presentation using big blue button, for example. I wanted to make something that was easily accessible, that was online, familiar to teachers in terms of the language used, and also showcased creative uses of the database activity type and can be shared and adapted by others. In terms of the pedagogical framework behind this Moodle tool guide, at the time of its creation, I was studying under Dr. Louise Starkey, which is where I read about the digital age learning matrix, and I've included a link to that there if you want to have a look at it. And I really like this explanation from Dr. Starkey about the digital age learning matrix. The matrix is comprised of 4 types of digital technology use: accessing information, presenting, processing information, and gaming or interactive programs. And there are 6 aspects of learning, which are doing, thinking about connections, thinking about concepts, critiquing and evaluating, creating knowledge, and sharing knowledge. And you can see that there is a comparison there with Bloom's taxonomy. And it really resonated with me that the focus was on the learner's activities, on the creativity, and on the sharing of knowledge. So to create the guide, I put together a big spreadsheet, and I've shared that with you as well. Put it on Google Docs so you can, if you want to have a look at it. And I collated all the Moodle tool guides and the digital age learning matrix into this one spreadsheet, and then I matched those to Moodle activities and resources. And I made the executive decision that it would be yes if the student uses the tool to its full capacity, and yes if the teacher provides quality information and questions to facilitate the use of the tool. And then also I had a maybe. I can do a demo, and what I would like you to do, if you are able to, is you can join in and play along. There's the link. And feel free to have a play with it as we go. I'm not going to do a live demo. I'll go through my slides because live demos are fraught. And you can see on the picture that I've chosen a very happy, confident person who is doing a live demo with no problems at all. It is on my Moodle Cloud site. It's 4.5. It was 4.3, I think, when I first created this tool, and the theme is with Boost. I created 2 single activity courses, one which was the database and the other which is the glossary, which links to the database. And I, rather than having one course with the 2 activities in it, I chose to have 2 single activity courses because it really just reduces the number of clicks to enter the course. That's the only reason. Normally, I'm not a fan of single activity courses. So the database is searchable, of course, and it does provide you with suggestions for tools based on what your learners what you want your learners to do. And ideally, you need to go straight into advanced search and list view. And that's just a zoom in of what the screen should look like when you start. Otherwise, you won't get those drop-down menus. So you can see that the drop-down menus are aspects of learning and digital technology use. I wasn't able to put them in a matching hierarchical order, but they're in alphabetical order, and I don't think it really matters anyway when the person, the teacher, is whoever is choosing the ones that they want. And then once you click on Save Settings, and if I had access to the language pack, I would make a change here, but I don't. I'm on a Moodle Cloud site. You can, I'm sure you can roll with it and work it out. So click on Save Settings, and then you get a result there with a descriptive summary and the aspect of learning and a short explanation of the aspect of learning. The list view also shows the digital technology use and then the suggested activities and resources for the combination of these two things. And each of those are clickable in terms that they will show the glossary. So they link to the glossary so you can get more information about that particular Moodle resource or activity. And this one I have the category, but then I decided to take the category off because I don't want to influence the teacher into thinking that this should only be used for assessment. So I would remove the category here. I think the categories are really helpful, but I think for this tool, I don't need them. So I was going to ask you if you had any questions, but I'm going to keep rolling with it, and I'll check the questions at the end of the webinar. So in terms of setup, how did I do it? There are two courses. There's one single activity course with the database activity and one single activity course with the glossary activity. And this is just a little overview of the first one. You can see my full name and short name are the same. It's the personal preference for me to almost always have them the same. I've got guest access, and then I've also got self-enrollment. And when you get to if you land on the home page, first of all, of my site home, you will see that there's a summary section on that site homepage, and there's a nice big bright button that encourages you to click on that. So I put that in the summary section, and there's a second reason for that being there, and that is that I want you to, when you click on that button, it takes you to the list view. So that links straight to the list view, which I've put in the little on the slide there. And if you want to know what the button is, I'll also put a link of that into the chat because it's always handy to know a little bit of HTML. If you don't get through to the advanced search, there are some course blocks on the course, and there have some instructions there showing you how to access them and utilize the search. For the database activity itself, I made a few changes away from my default settings. I forced approval to be required and then approved all of my own entries. This was to make sure that any other entries were vetted by me before they were added. But also for the time being, I've disabled the ability for others to add entries by using permissions, which I'll show you in a minute. And I do want to allow comments, and I have set up an event monitoring rule to monitor comments. I've got glossary auto linking on, and here's the permissions where I didn't want anybody, like a student or a guest, to be able to write entries. For the database setup, here are my fields. I've got the details, aspects of learning, digital technology use, activity or resource, and an explanation of the aspects of learning. And I initially had more information, but I don't need that. It's deprecated. That was when I was using 4.3, and I tried to make a link to the single entry view, but I don't need it now. This is the change I made to the advanced search template. So I was using the fields, aspects of learning, and digital technology use. I added some custom CSS so that the text is all black. If I don't have that custom CSS there, then these OR, when it shows the OR from gaming or interactive programs, they show up as blue. And I don't want that to show up as blue. And if you have any other knowledge about how to remove that blue, please let me know. I did try turning glossary auto-linking off, but that didn't make any difference. So I've used their custom CSS to change that. And I'll just bypass the questions, sorry. Now, the glossary is my course 2. And although it has guest access, I did also create a course meta link so that it is linked to the first course. That was more out of habit than anything else when I have 2 courses running concurrently. Same idea, single activity, and this time it's a glossary and there's no completion tracking. I also restricted the activity permissions. I had to make sure that it is a global glossary. Bear in mind that it is a global glossary now across the whole site, which I'm okay with it on this site, but you might want to rethink that if you were to do it on another site, copy it onto another site. So what I would like you to do is you are absolutely welcome to use it. Please use it. Please make comments. Please share examples in your comments. And let me know of any suggestions that you have for improvements. Have I made a spelling mistake? Anything. I'm more than happy to receive your feedback and for you to let me know about this. Thank you, Lin. Lin's put something here about the removing the blue. I thought I was turning blue. I was trying so many different things out.
Yeah.
Where is this posted?
It's worth read the comment. Lin said that for the text shown in blue, perhaps I think you need to deactivate activity names auto-linking instead of glossary auto-linking. Did you try that?
I can't remember now. I tried so many things, but I will try that.
Was taking a look for sure.
Yeah, thank you. It's hosted on my Moodle Cloud site. So I have a Moodle Cloud site which I use and love for testing and trying things and playing with things. And I've sent you the link to that already. And if you'd like to get your own copy of it, yes, you can. It's available. I've put it on MoodleNet. And there's a link here.
Would you please tell us what license have you used for this?
That is a very good question.
So people can... Thank you.
It's like you read my mind. So you can modify your copy, and it's under the same license as the original one was. You don't need to be a developer. And at the moment, it is only core resources and activities. But of course, if you create your own, you can add whatever you want to it.
That is awesome.
And I want to say ngā mihi, which is thank you. And also just to remember and reflect on the whakatauki that we started with. And just this image here too, it really captured for me 2020 and that sudden shift to that forced isolation and huge increase in online interaction that we all lived through and experienced. And so that's also part of this whole Moodle experience as well. So thank you very much. That is my part over with. And if you have questions, please pop them in the chat.
Yes, we actually have a question. Well, many thanks from everyone for sharing this as well. Bob was asking why not H5P?
Why not? What? Sorry, H5P?
Yeah.
From my perspective, simply because H5P wasn't available when I first did it, and so my online bit wasn't H5P because it just wasn't around when I did it first. Yeah,
for me, I have a love-hate relationship with H5P, and I think I prefer the more old-fashioned Moodle core database, and I think database is underutilized. I think more people should use it. I mean, that's my opinion, and I would love to see it used more. And I don't think H5P quite captured what I wanted at the time, that the options, all of the options weren't available.
Yeah, the search and organization tools are stronger and better in a specific database like this rather than H5P, I think, or certainly were. I haven't used H5P in that way for a long time, but yeah, I think for what you've done, Tish, I would say database and then the links to the glossary would have been the way I would go as well. The license somebody asked about, I have pasted it in there. It's Creative Commons with attribution, non-commercial, share alike is the original license that Joyce released the tool guide under, and so that's what all the subsidiary works have been released under as well. So with attribution, non-commercial, share alike.
Isn't it amazing that an open educational resources as such is living and improving and developing throughout the years and still sharing and still can be contemporary?
I think it's amazing that Joyce produced a resource 15 years ago that is still actively in use, and as you say, actively being developed, actively being updated. And that comes partly from that license, because we can develop it. So long as we all share it with each other and share it back, then we can all improve it. We can adapt it. We can continue doing things, and that's very much the whole open source type ethos that Moodle itself lives under, and certainly put my sales hat on for about 20 seconds, the Catalyst lives under as well. So yeah, very much seeing open education resources just expand in this way because of that open license, and the ability to recreate, to remix, to reuse is fantastic.
And it's amazing that Bohus also shared a version. What languages is that? In a certain version of the tool guide translated in a language that I couldn't really tell. Can you please tell us, Bohus? Yeah, it's really amazing. It's in search. Thank you so much. So good to have those things here. I would say that MoodleNet is a good place to keep sharing such kind of resources, so we can have them for everybody somewhere centralized, somewhere easy to find. Most importantly, that's the main reason behind MoodleNet. That would be nice. And please, if you have any other question, let us know. So here we are. I'm very sentimental today because this is a resource that I used in the past. I know a lot of people who have used it in the past, and uh, it just is, it's just amazing to see how things can evolve and keep going on for the benefit of everyone. So thank you so much, Richard and Tis and Richard. I'm moving on to the wrap up. So, if you have enjoyed this session as much as we do, we would love you to consider getting involved further and help us grow by contributing to the development of Moodle Academy. You can do this by visiting our Get Involved course, which you will find on the front page of Moodle Academy site. You can suggest ideas for new webinars and courses, and you can vote on ideas that have been suggested already. And we are always on the lookout for community members to help present webinars and co-create short online courses, right? Richard and Tis. We would love your help making Moodle Academy more inclusive. So, if you are able to, please jump into our Translate Moodle Academy course and get started with helping us translate our courses and webinars into different languages. Of course, please help us spread the word about Moodle Academy by telling your colleagues about the courses we offer and the events we run. When you complete a course, you will earn a badge, and educators might like to think about getting involved with the Moodle Educator Qualification, which was known as Moodle Educator Certification. You can take the Are You Ready for MEQ quiz, and one of our Moodle partners will support you through the qualification process. Also, keep an eye for the Moodle Administrator qualification that will become available in 2025. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you found this useful, and I hope to see you on the Moodle Academy course forums and in our upcoming webinars again.